think we're
hate
live.
that.
There's a little hole in my shirt, but you can't see it. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We'll see our
Sorry.
regulars
Busy
start
trying
to.
to transfer Echo and the Bunny Men ticket.
Yes.
I can't actually apparently do anything like a grown-up anymore.
We should start with Iran and pick up on our text chain from yesterday. Everybody, let us know what you thought of our text chain and whether it's something you'd like to see more often. We might even, make it more visually appealing.
That was not easy, let me tell you, my friend.
It was good though. No, but that's our new little icon for Hot Takes Happy Hour, but we turned it into a text thread.
Yeah,
or Dany, I should say Dany did.
We're holding phones.
I know, and saying
It's
what?
very cute.
It's very cute. It's very cute.
It's adorable.
But
Anyway.
the whole thing is what we were saying is that Dany and I text each other all day long about this stuff, and so we figured we'll kind of let you in on our frustration, exasperation, inspiration, very rarely, but sometimes. And so I don't feel like we know any more about what's going on with Iran today than we did yesterday.
I think we know a little bit more because the president has said a few more things about how he doesn't give a damn about Kuwait and about how the bottom line for what it would take is for someone to die, for an American service member.
For an American to die. Just to remind everybody, yesterday, there have been these kind of skirmishes back and forth. The Iranians hit a Kuwaiti base, which wasn't...
and they hit the airport.
They hit the airport, which is also used, I think U.S. troops use that. Isn't there a section of the airport that's used as a base for the U.S.?
Maybe.
I heard that the Iranians were a little freaked out by the result of that because it killed an Indian, and you don't want to piss off the Indians.
They'll get over
so now
it.
they're trying to manage this with the Kuwaitis. But like we were saying yesterday, the more that Trump's like, I don't give a shit about the Kuwaitis. I don't give a damn about this. I don't care about this. I'm getting bored. These countries are going to start to make an accommodation with Iran on their own, which further minimizes U.S. leverage.
So Mark and I had General Jack Keane on the podcast. We put that out this morning. I'll put it in the show notes, but you all can find it at on your Apple Podcasts or wherever. It's called "What the Hell Is Going On." Anyway, we talked with Jack for an hour about what what the
there's alcohol in here.
Oh, good for you! I didn't get any. On the other hand, I had wine at lunch, but.
Good for you.
Yes, it was good for me. But there's a lot. There's a lot that more that we could do. The president has a plan in front of him for closing out the existing military targets in shutting down more of Iran's defense industrial complex. Jack told us that the plan is 10 to 14 days. Could it take longer? For sure, it could take longer, but that's what they estimate is needed. They said, hey, Mark, they said that he said that one of the things that's happened as a result of this ceasefire is that the military has a lot more visibility into Iran and the fact that the fact that they've been pulling stuff out in order to use it has also been helpful to the U.S. military in identifying where they're manufacturing and what they're doing. And so they feel pretty confident that they could deal an important and decisive blow against the Iranians. Again, he goes on and basically says, and this is Jack, not me, although I agree 100% with him, says that, that our allies in the region are extraordinarily nervous. They're extraordinarily upset with us. Less about going after Iran, more about the constant bobbing and weaving back and forth, go, no go, threat, no threat, and that they are very, just sort of beside themselves about this, which I mean, I feel them. I think they're right.
And it's not just the Gulf, it's Arabs, it's all Arabs. And, I saw an Arab diplomat the other day who's generally pretty mild manners who said, this is a complete shit show. Cash flow, we're going to get to that. About the DNI. Look, as we've talked about before, it's never the big idea, it's always the execution. And almost like it's never the crime, it's the cover up. And I mean, this is a habit, really, of this president. I mean, with Gaza, kind of left it midstream. Ukraine kind of left it midstream. And these conflicts continue to go on. People continue to suffer and be killed, or um, there's low level military action. But Trump pretty much loses interest if he doesn't get an immediate success like he did supposedly in Venezuela. And you know, just kind of moves on. And I fear that this is what's happening. I mean, he's been saying this, and we're going to get to the idea about the media and how he's using the media. But he's been saying this rubbish day in, day out. It doesn't mean anything, but really not. I mean, I do think the talks are still going on, but we don't know who's negotiating on behalf of the U.S. Is it the Pakistanis? Is it the Qataris? Who's doing it for the U.S.? I don't even know if we really know. JD Vance was, the point person. What involvement does he have? How much is he following this now? I just think we don't really know, but I don't think there's much forward movement on anything. I don't think we're closer to a deal, and I don't think the president is closer to resuming any of this military action that Jack was speaking.
Yeah, no, look, I don't know either. I don't know either. I think he's, the most sort of decisive thing I've said is that he has taken what I think was a very strong hand and played it as if he's weak. And this is not the place to do that. Apart from anything else, you set up the future leaders to have to return to the region. You set up our allies, and look, for all of those people who are like, well, of course, I mean, they'll turn to the Chinese, or the Saudis will turn to Pakistan and to Egypt and to Turkey. My answer to them is, yeah, good luck. Okay, you do that, friends. But at the end of the day, there's no substitute for the United States. But as you and I discussed, this is when the really stupid decisions happen, right? It was in the wake of the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, for everybody who's not paying
Obama
minute
era.
attention,
The Obama
2015.
era nuclear deal.
At that point, right, President Obama said, I'm going to mangle the quote, but he said, pretty much that he said that Iran and Saudi Arabia are going to have
To
to learn to
share share the
the
region.
region. Right. Now, A, what the hell are you talking about? B, he basically gave carte blanche to the Saudis to do what they thought was necessary to stand up to the Iranians. And of course, what did they do? They invaded Yemen. Now, let me just say that was fecklessness plus, 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 because
And
the Saudis,
unproductive.
totally unproductive, didn't reach the goal that they wanted. And while I understand why they did it and I understand what their aims were, I think it's safe to say they didn't achieve those aims.
Mhm.
And of course,
And are
there was a
still
lot of.
and they're still kind of bogged down in that.
But
Yeah.
the point I'm trying to make about this is not that
Yeah, I get it. No,
not
I
that
understand. I'm just it's a bad decision that keeps giving.
that's also not what I'm trying to say. Although
Okay.
that's also
Say
true.
it.
Say it.
Say it.
Say it.
Land the
Land the plane.
plane.
Jinx. What I'm trying to say is that when you give the reins to our regional allies and friends and say, hey, you need to fend for yourself, right? You need to split the region, or you need to do this, or you need to deal with your own national security issues. This is when countries like Saudi Arabia make stupid decisions, like Yemen, but even more what Saudi Arabia is doing right now in its fight with the United Arab Emirates, in its decision to suddenly make nice with Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan. I mean, what are they thinking? It's like cartoon strategery. It makes absolutely no sense for them. It's dangerous for them. And remember the last time, not that they thought for themselves and went into Yemen, but the last time they tried a big power play in the region like this was, backing Islamist groups like Al Qaeda. Good thinking. You should do that again. That
Well,
ended well.
and then on the Emirates side, what they're doing in Yemen, and then what they're doing in Sudan too, which I really don't even understand why
Yeah, I
they're.
understand it, but I worry
I,
less about them than about the Saudis, because I think the Emirates have a pretty good and a pretty disciplined military. But all of this sort of meddling stuff
yeah,
is
yeah.
not it doesn't end well, and it is not having the effect that they think it's going to have, and for reasons that are totally unclear to me. History is a complete mystery to them. Hmm, did we ever do this before? How did it end up? Was that a good thing? And, the answer
Well,
is
nobody really learns the lessons of history. I'm just going to pick up on something you said about Obama when he said that they should share the region. I think anyway with this regime. Okay, let's just say with this regime, in future regimes when we're both, um, in the ground, um, Iran is not going to be ever in this era, in this lifetime, is never going to assume the role of regional power that maybe they aspire to be, maybe they wish they could be. If you remember a couple of months ago, a month ago, I have no concept of time anymore.
me neither.
I interviewed Arash Azizi,
Oh,
who's a
yeah, I do.
very well, I think a very thoughtful, um, he's a Iranian author and historian. He's a professor at Yale and a columnist for The Atlantic, or a contributor for The Atlantic. And, I think he has a thoughtful picture that you may not get from the kind of elite foreign policy. Let's put it like that. Anyway, he said that, Iran does aspire to, take its rightful place, what it considers its rightful place in the region. The question is, what would it have to give up, and what would it take? And no one's, it's one thing for Obama to say, oh, they should share the region. But, it's kind of like Russia. Did anybody ever really, sit down and have a conversation of what needs to be done? It's just, this $24,000, um, you know, discussion about Iran is a bad actor. Yes, they're a bad actor. But when you have the president talking about making a deal, I don't think there's any discussion um, about what a real deal would mean. It's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors.
Um, I think he knows what he wants. He hasn't been terribly clear in articulating it,
But
but
yes, Danny, but don't you think, and we've discussed this before, a negotiation, and yes, we had the leverage that we had, it could have been Trump knows what he wants. But a negotiation is having the other side walk away and feel that even if they didn't get something, feel that they got something too.
I mean, when you bomb
He's
somebody,
not gonna.
generally speaking,
Yes,
that's
but
not.
you're asking, you're not gonna get, I'm not saying we don't deserve it, or, the world doesn't deserve Iran's unconditional surrender. Not happening.
Mm. Well, you know, I still hold out a sliver of hope. So on
Good
your
luck with
point
that.
about, yeah, thank you. On your point about what is in that glass, by the way?
It's like a skinny Paloma, a little bit of tequila, grapefruit soda,
Oh, that's good.
and like a splash of grapefruit juice, not too much. but I didn't have a lime, so it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, no, a lime would
And
have
I
been
and
good.
I what I really needed was mezcal.
No, not a mezcal woman. All right, now coming to the deep and incisive point that I made, and I want to talk about DNI, Pulte. I want to talk about Scott Pelley as well.
Okay, but let's just finish up
Wait,
on Iran with the media part.
but let me. Oh yes, that can be our transition to talk about Scott
Okay.
Pelley and our cash flows.
Okay.
We'll have to wait. So I think that the problem that you lay out, the Russians, the Iranians, the Turks, and their aspirations, right? What do they have? They have imperial aspirations. They want to be the country that they were when they were great. So Erdogan wants to reconstitute the Ottoman Empire. Iran wants to reconstitute the Persian Empire. We can't decide whether Putin wants to reconstitute the Soviet Union or the Russian Empire, but why not both? And the problem is we don't live in an era where those kinds of goals are achievable. And yet the leadership has made no accommodations for what this could mean in the modern era. And this is why it ends up being a shit show, right? It is that they're not conquering places. They're not creating a new empire. They are just destroying Lebanon, destroying Yemen, destroying Syria, destroying Ukraine. And this is sort of an interesting thing that's worth talking about in some nerdly way over cocktails at some other point. Now, you talk about the media.
Just to close, just to land the plane, it's very ironic that you say all this because I do feel like Trump is doing that. Anyway, for cocktails. Imperial? You think he's not an imperialist? Okay. Media, and then we'll get to Scott Pelley. We were talking about, look, as we said, Trump is saying one thing one day, we're talks are on, they're not off, I'm walking away, all this stuff. And, it has no basis in reality on the ground or what's going on. It's just him saying things, tweeting things, posting things, or having these calls with journalists. Like, I don't know how he has time to be president because he's on the phone with a different journalist. Like, 4 people this week had exclusive calls with President Trump.
I know. Well, at a certain point, they're not
And
exclusive
not
anymore.
asking, and I'm pretty sure not asking the tough questions that one would ask if you were sitting across from the president having a formal interview.
I don't know about that
Oh,
because I don't know, but I will say, so my objection to this is actually much less that I don't expect any journalist, no matter who they are, to turn down a conversation with the president of the United States, no matter who he or she is. So I kind of get that.
oh, I get it.
What you and I were talking about particularly was the reporting done by Axios on this phone conversation between Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump. So the call happens one night, and within a few hours, there is a leak to Axios about there is a leak to Axios that the president had an f-bomb riddled phone call with Bibi, screamed at him, yelled at him, was mad at him about Lebanon. Now,
And
the,
called him, I'm not going to say it because then we
an
won't get
idiot,
on YouTube. Effing crazy.
right? That and then president the next day called up the reporter from the New York Post, and the New York Post woman asked him about it, and he said, well, I was a little, what was it, I was a little
He
disturbed.
said, yes, I was perturbed, but he didn't say, well, that's not a fair. I mean, we don't know whether he did say that or not for
Well, I think
sure.
I
Do
wasn't
we?
on the call, but
Right. We
yes,
weren't on the call.
we do know. We do know because we know somebody who was on the call.
Okay.
And the person who was on the call, and Jack talks about this explicitly in our podcast, the person on the call said that was not how the call went down. Yes, the president was irritated. Yes, they went back and forth in a pretty testy way about Lebanon, which is natural, right? Because Hezbollah is not abiding by the ceasefire that the president thinks that Israel should abide by. But that was not what happened. Now, whose agenda was being furthered by leaking a false narrative about a phone call between the president of the United States and the prime minister of Israel? It wasn't the agenda of the president of the United States. It certainly wasn't the agenda of the prime minister of Israel. It was, in turn, the agenda of Iran, number one, which was
Mm.
trying to stir the pot and say, we're not going to be in part of negotiations because of
Trying
Hezbollah.
to drive a wedge between the US and
Bingo.
Israel.
And people who know that there's an election coming up in Israel and don't like Bibi Netanyahu. Now, we happen to know that some people who are very close to the president and who have the president's trust don't like Bibi Netanyahu. And so there's no question in my mind who was the source of that leak.
Do you want to say?
Sure, it was Steve Witkoff. Okay.
Who has a tendency to embellish the truth.
He does. And
Remember what he did with Putin? Oh yeah, here's how you spin Trump. I'll give you a roadmap. I'll give you the prompt.
I know. I mean, the fact that this is allowed to continue, and and by the way, then the president goes on within 24 hours to say, I don't view the Iran deal and Lebanon as connected. So he's saying that he doesn't, that he doesn't view them as connected, but that leak suggested that he called Bibi an effing idiot and effing crazy because he
He's
wouldn't accept that.
but he also does, like, one day he does view it as connected, and the other day he does. Come
I'll
on,
give you that.
Danny.
I'll give you that.
I mean, I think he
Nonetheless.
also said in a different thing yesterday in that interview with the Post that he was perturbed about Lebanon. So, that's the thing. Are the Iranians liars and thieves and crooks and terrorists and all of that? Yes. But I don't necessarily believe the president of the United States in this era any more than I mean, I just don't. I'm not even listening to it anymore. It's kind of like
Yeah.
it's like a fly that keeps swatting around me, and I keep having to. You know what? When they announce a deal and they publish it and they start to implement it, then I'll know there's a deal.
No, I listen, I take your point, and I think this just to sort of close this out, I think this underscores the point that you made, which is that, and frankly the point I made as well, which is that here is a person, here's the most powerful man in the world. I mean, let's just say it just like that. And he is playing as if he is at some two-bit casino
Yeah, I
in
was
a
just going to say a
third-rate
card
casino.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I said, he's playing a strong hand as if he's a loser, and I don't. That's bad, and that I think you can apply that to almost everything. Apropos of which, actually, let's not talk about the journalist. Let's talk about Bill Pulte for a second. So
Okay.
everybody knows what Pulte homes are. Pulte homes. They're big McMansions and things like that. I don't know. They may be lovely inside. I don't have a Pulte home,
Does
but
anybody have a Pulte home?
let
Put
us
it
know
in the
how it is.
comments. Yeah.
Let us know how it is. In any case,
Or
this
invite us over for a cocktail.
just to show us how your house is. So, president takes this guy who is in charge of mortgages and was the rocket scientist behind the idea that we should have a 50-year, not a 30-year term mortgage, but a 50-year term mortgage, so we could all be dead still owing money. And because of his
Halagarani.
immense qualifications as a mortgage specialist, he put him in as acting DNI. There was a big kerfuffle on the Hill. There really was. And a lot of Republicans made nasty comments about it. And the Intelligence Committee basically said, yeah, that guy's not getting confirmed. Don't even think about it. To me, what was terrible about this was not even that some raving incompetent was put in charge of the
Because look at the rest of
ODNI.
because look at the rest of the cabinet.
I mean, look, we had a senile president for 4 years.
Okay,
I'm
don't
not
give me
holding
no,
all
no,
this
no, 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 no,
against
no, 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 no. I hate it when you do that.
All right, tough
Okay?
luck.
Yes, we had a senile president. And you know what is going to be written on your tombstone? Both and. Both and. We had a senile president and we have an incompetent cabinet now.
I think we have some great people. I think we have some great people in this cabinet.
And some not so great people.
As always, Elise, our point is this. Look, there have been people who have come out of different fields and been decent at their
Yes,
unexpected
yes.
job. Okay.
100%.
And so I'm less fixated on
Right.
that and more fixated, wait for it because this will make you all happy, right? And more fixated on the fact that apparently it was Roger Stone who recommended that Pulte take this job, and that the president listened to Roger Stone and thought, that's a good idea. Okay, now let's set aside Pulte and further satisfy everybody by saying the DNI is a stupid position and shouldn't be
The
there.
DNI, talk about why the DNI was created in the aftermath of 9/11 and what it was supposed to do, and then we could get to why it should go
So
bye-bye.
So going down the into the Wayback Machine. So, in the inside the US government, there's never a notion of responsibility, right? So no one loses their job over 9/11. Nobody is fired. Nobody is disciplined in any way. And how do we analyze what went wrong? Well, we had not only well, the 9/11 Commission said there was a failure of imagination, which I think was absolutely true. And then they talked about compartmentalization, and they thought to themselves in their wisdom in Congress and in the executive branch, what we need to answer 3,000 Americans killed by 19 terrorists, what we need is more bureaucracy, because that's where we
I
fell down
saw
on the
the
job.
I saw the reason behind trying to get all the intelligence agencies speaking to one another. I'm not saying that that was the right mechanism, but I did see that part of what happened was that agencies weren't the right hand wasn't talking to the left hand. It wasn't again, this was a totally different administration, but the idea wasn't bad, but the product, the implementation.
I think the idea itself was actually bad. I think
The
we need.
idea of bringing more cohesiveness among the intelligence agencies.
So look,
It
the
was very
CIA has
siloed. It was very siloed. You have
the C-
17 or 18 intelligence agencies, right?
Yes, but they do have different remits. And the CIA has always been, the capo di tutti
Right.
capi.
Right. Right.
And the CIA has always been at the forefront of this kind of analysis. And I would not say that the failure of, I mean, again, you know, I would not say that the failure of 9/11 can be put down to a lack of coordination between our intelligence agencies. And what has happened now is, and this is, by the way, having nothing to do with either Trump or his Nepo
Right.
baby
Right.
buddy,
Right.
who he put in that acting position, but has to do with how this job has been executed over the last 24, 23 years, which is that it is bureaucratized, it's bullying, it's highly politicized, and it is actually diluting the quality of intelligence, not enhancing it. And I hear this from inside from absolutely everybody, from NSA, from NRO, from CIA, from DIA, from all of the letters of the alphabet that exist in Washington, D.C. This should be reformed. And I hope what the chairman and the ranking member of the Intel Committee, both Hipsy and Sissy in the House and Senate, what they do is they say to themselves, no, 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 it's not that we shouldn't put this idiot in this
We
job.
shouldn't put any
We
idiot
shouldn't
in
put any
this.
idiot in this job.
That's going to be the name of a piece we're going to write.
Right. Don't put any
Um,
idiot in that job.
yeah. Yeah, he's not getting it, but neither should anyone
But
else.
neither should any idiot.
I
Right.
do think there should be maybe I was saying to you before we started that maybe it should be like a direct, there is already a directorate of intelligence at the NSC. Maybe there's someone that, there's a Slack channel among all the agencies. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, actually, I think it's a signal channel,
They
right?
should have a signal chat or a
Mhm.
Substack.
Yeah.
Um, okay,
Anyway, all right.
you want to talk about Scott Pelley and
Just quickly to close things out with a little fun discussion about pompous journalists who think they're super important.
go. What do you think? And then I'll tell you what I think.
So you and I know
We already know what
we
each other
already know what each
thinks,
other
but
thinks.
because we've been talking about it for 3 days. But anyway,
Right, exactly. So Scott Pelley, who was a longtime journalist at 60 Minutes, didn't like the new management. He not just decided to share his discomfort with that new management. He was a complete unbelievable, bombastic jerk in a staff meeting with the new leadership and called them incompetent and unqualified, demeaned them personally, and basically, laid himself out there and said, "Fire me." Threw himself on so that he could be the Jesus Christ of the journalism world for the hot minute that everybody's paying attention, and cue the
And
outrage.
start a Substack.
Right, exactly, and cue the outrage, right?
Right.
Everybody behaved entirely predictably, and my response to this, and you obviously, you are a journalist. My response to this is, you know, dude, you work for a company. You don't like the company, then stand up, write a letter of resignation, and go and start your freaking Substack, or go work for a different network, or go do whatever you want. But don't behave like a dick, right? And he behaved like an entitled, sanctimonious dick, and he deserved to be fired. And I was like this. And it wasn't because it's Barry, and it wasn't because there are people who are more on the right for this. It was great. You are not the be all and end all. You are not the avatar of all journalists everywhere. You should STFU and go away.
How do you really feel?
There you go.
I think what's really interesting about this is, and I've told you this, I don't like what is being done at CBS, whether it's at 60 Minutes, whether it's this evening,
News.
show, if you could call it. I mean, anyway. The direction of CBS is kind of concerning because it is very leaning into what David Ellison wants on behalf of, appeasing the administration, and because they have a merger coming up. I've said how I feel about what's going on at CBS, but because this happened and the way it happened, it's only being covered in black and white. If say what you just said, which I don't disagree with really, but I also agree both and. I don't like what was done to CBS. I do think the journalists were under fire. They were encouraged to do things that they felt very uncomfortable with. But if they did, they could have left. They didn't. I don't know what Sharon Alfonsi thought was going to happen when she started giving interviews and writing public letters to the editor about what happened at 60 Minutes. I mean, you're playing with fire there. And so I was talking to a friend about it today, and Janice Labott. I talked to Janice Labott about it at Great Length last night because I feel very strongly about
Integrity in journalism.
the integrity in journalism and the whole media ecosystem. What's happening now? But what's happening now is you have to pick a side. You can't see both sides, and that's it. And so my friend said, you may be right. Like, they didn't really behave as people that wanted to continue to work. They wanted to continue to work at 60 Minutes, but continue to publicly, barrage the leadership. I mean, I don't think that's sustainable. And it doesn't sound like they really wanted to work there under this management anyway. But you have to be outraged. You can't acknowledge that because you're so outraged about Barry Weiss and David Ellison and Trump and the merger or whatever. So you can't see it in like a clear picture. But because I have the benefit of eyes all over and wisdom that's beyond, I see a very big picture, a very complex picture here with a lot of shades of gray.
Yeah. I would love to have seen the outrage machine, when people were fired by the previous management of CBS.
Well, I was just going to say there was did you send it to me or did you retweet it or whatever? There was a very good tweet about how David Rode treated Scott Pelley when he was anchoring the CBS evening news.
He fired him.
Went on vacation and he fired him.
And where was the outrage? I don't understand.
I think there was some mild outrage. There was no outrage. There was a little mild outrage.
Okay, you find it and put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Because I don't think there was any outrage.
I think there was a little. I mean, I was kind of
David Rhodes' brother, Ben Rhodes.
Yeah, I mean, I forget that they're brothers because there's so little, you know. And I also think sometimes that David Rhodes is not to be confused with David Rode, who is the journalist that was kidnapped by the Taliban and now works for NBC News, who's a good reporter.
You know too many roads. We gotta go,
So
baby.
many roads, so little time.
All roads lead to Rome. Just remember that. All right, guys, remember I talked to you about the podcast last week? I'm still fussing with the podcast. I apologize. I still don't understand it. It's not user-friendly. I'm not apparently very intelligent. That's just the way it is. We'll figure it out eventually, and don't be mad if it comes in some weird form. But I'm still fussing with it. So,
Let us know what you think of our text threads.
yeah, let us know.
And, it's a good way to get out some breaking news without this happened. I hate these people like this happened today and no, 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 no. And they just aggregate like all this other. Anyway,
Thank you for the
getting on a
Caravaggio
rant.
comment, I think. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Bye, Lisa. Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.